Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. And we're joined on this Monday to recap the NFL Draft by the great Zac Jackson of The Athletic. Zach, how are you today? What's
Good,
going
Bull.
on?
Are you going to want to do this like the morning after the Super Bowl, or are you going to wait till I get home a couple days later?
You're going to be busy traveling. So I'll give you an extra 24 hours. But come on, you got to hustle it up a little.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, we're in touch anyway. We'll get it handled.
I was just saying, and it's funny that you said that because I was just saying that, like, listen, I think we all love what the Browns did on paper, but people, and it's not, the Browns fan base is not the only one that does this, but sometimes after the draft, people go a little crazy as if what you had before doesn't matter. And because you like the picks, they're all going to be great players. It's funny.
Yeah, it does happen everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I thought, just from where I sit, the reaction after round one actually kind of was negative.
Yeah.
And that surprised me. And then overall, it's super positive, which is weird because the first two guys are really McNeil Warren's going to play, right? But like the first two guys are really the ones that set the tone for us. Like, okay, this is what we're really, really counting on, So, if you want to be excited, you should, because he handled the draft really well. And
Right.
I think when you take the totality of what this mess has become, there have been good moves, right? The Tyson Campbell move mattered.
Yeah.
In coming in, needing to rebuild the offensive line because of their own decisions, right? They have done that. So there's screaming questions about the quarterback, and those are tied directly to what you would have to do with Myles Garrett and how you support this defense in general. But they have rebuilt the offensive line. And again, we have to see the guys play. But they have rebuilt the offensive line. They have added juice to the receiving core. They're 21 years old. They haven't done it, but it's better than what they had.
Yeah.
And so you add the 6 trades and coming back from McNeil Warren and getting back in to get a third tackle, because that's a premium position that you really abandoned last year. Like, hey, they did a nice job, and this team is better prepared to compete and better on its way, Bull, to us saying a year from now, hey, here's the small handful of areas that need to be addressed rather than, oh boy. Right. So, if these guys develop in of the first 4 or 5 players, they're anything like last year's 4 or 5 players, then they're well on their way. Is this team going to score 17 points per game? Is this team going to avoid the quarterback carousel? And are these receivers going to come in and produce and catch the ball and be in the right spot? We will see. But the positives are how it was handled. And quite clearly, like, you've made the decision, hey, our offense wasn't enough. We have to make changes. And the head coach clearly had input on this draft, because he said, I can't play with these tackles and receivers that you've given me.
No doubt.
So they went and got more tackles and more receivers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a position that they have, or 2 positions that they've done a miserable job. And hopefully this is the turnaround. I know there's many amongst the fan base and amongst the media that think Paul DePodesta is the boogeyman, and now that he's gone, Andrew Berry's a genius, and we'll see. And I don't want to, even though I don't believe in those conspiracy theories, it does look like he did a good job on paper, and he did address needs, and we'll see how it pans out. So can
I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah, please.
I'm glad you said that, because I understand that people want a pound of flesh because the Browns have been awful.
Yes.
Right. But Paul DePodesta was there for last year's draft, just not this year's. It was the same thing. And Stefanski got fired because the offense stunk.
Yeah.
But like, to go after DePodesta and Stefanski and single either one of them out like they were the guys. How about Andrew Berry? How about Deshaun Watson? How about the Haslams? Like, they're all still there. So like for Andrew Berry to keep his job and to give people 1 ounce of hope in him, he's done what he had to do that. So if you have more than 1 ounce, good. And it's a lot fairer than it was 3 days ago. But like, that to me is the funny thing. Like, oh my gosh, now the Browns can draft.
Right.
Because people liked 1 4th-round pick. They're like, oh my gosh, this would have never happened if DePodesta was here.
It is crazy.
It's 66 overall a year ago. They got, one of the best young tight ends in the league, and DePodesta was in the room.
I know. But he had
and
apparently
Stefanski was in the room. And Stefanski is the one that loves tight ends more than anything. He's the one that said, let's go get Harold Fannin.
But the conspiracy theory is that DePodesta was not involved in the draft last year, even he was there. And Kevin Stefanski's main pick was Dylan Gabriel. So everything else The current guys get credit.
Dylan Gabriel was picked off their analytic charting project that led him to Cody Kessler.
Yeah, and apparently Andrew Berry doesn't use analytics, according to some people. So.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable. All right,
but the biggest analytics department in the league.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at. I want to start with the offensive line where they drafted. And by the way, what's the official pronunciation? Is it Fano?
Fano.
Spencer Fano.
Like put an H in there. Maybe even like an HW.
Right.
Fano.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. All right. So the Browns have drafted 3 offensive linemen. They've signed 2 free agent offensive linemen, re-signed Tevin Jenkins, and traded for Titus Howard. Is it my guess, you tell me if I'm wrong, that the starting offensive lineman that they, at least the hope is, that it's Fano at left tackle, Zion Johnson at left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, Titus Howard at right tackle, and I'll say Austin Barber at right guard. Is that what their hope is, or that the most likely, or am I wrong, especially about right
probably
guard?
Tevin Jenkins. Jenkins is going to get the first crack at right guard.
Okay.
I do think Austin Barber will maybe get a chance at guard. It looks like Zinter's not in the plans at all.
Right.
So KT Leviston, who played left tackle last year after being a last-minute developmental acquisition, he could move inside depending on how it goes.
Right.
They did add some interior guys last year who will get to compete. But yeah, I think it'll be Tevin Jenkins who they brought back on a 1-year deal. But yes, Zion Johnson's going to be the left and Titus Howard's going to be the right. And when Elton Jenkins gets healthy, which probably isn't until the summer, the idea is for him to be the center.
Yeah.
So if something fails or if there is another injury, they like that Elton Jenkins can move around.
That's true.
And his Pro Bowl seasons were at left guard. But Zion Johnson was the first guy. He was the highest paid guy. He's going to play left guard. And then Titus Howard has played other positions. He wants to play right tackle here.
Right.
He probably will. So, what I always say, Bull, is like history says with these free agents that one of them is going to be really good and one of them is going to be a disaster. So We'll see what happens. But Jenkins and Howard have been really good, accomplished players.
Yeah.
But they're both 30 and they're coming here, with guaranteed money into a bad offense. So and Jenkins coming off a fractured leg, which is why the Packers moved on from him. But he moved to center last year because he knew that was probably his best chance of getting more money from either the Packers or someone else. It started to work out. He got hurt, I think, last October or November, something right around mid-season, something like that. So he's been a really good player when he's been healthy. And he's out on the field. He's going through his rehab. They just, you don't need a 30-year-old on the field in May anyway. No. So yeah, that's the group.
Yeah.
The one exception, the other rookies will be brought along slowly, I would assume. But the one exception is when we see him on the field 3 or 4 weeks from now, Fano will be the left tackle. Yeah. So who else will compete there? DeJuan Jones, when he's fully cleared, and Leviston can play it because he did last year. And he'll be in the mix for a roster spot. So you have a guy that that showed up on your team on August 27th and ended up having to start 3/4 of the year. And now he's a bubble guy. Yeah. So that's an upgrade. Right. And you can continue to develop it. And if he makes it, it turns into a great trade and great development. That's what you have to do. They were really looking to hit doubles here, Bull. They were really looking to just get guys in the lineup. Let's go full baseball analogy.
Yeah.
To give you a chance. And Concepcion does that. And he might turn into your leadoff hitter for a long time.
Yeah.
And Fano's going to be in the lineup for a long time. I think he's probably more of a high floor than high ceiling guy. But if it doesn't work out at left tackle and somehow you can score another left tackle along the way, he will play for years on your line. He was, as a true freshman, when he did play the left side, he was designated right then as a first-round pick. And 2.5 years later, he became a first-round pick. So Boston's kind of the wild card. There's not many guys that are 6'4" and true outside receivers, and some of his college tape, specifically from 24, is really good. Is he fast enough to play in the NFL? Is he fast enough to really take that next step? We'll see. That's something that'll be decided over the next 2 off seasons, not just this one.
Yeah.
But Todd Monken looked and said, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Isaiah Bond, are you kidding me? Just like we said it all year last year. So Concepcion on day one should be better than Bond and better than Corley. Boston will compete with Tillman. Tillman's probably not even going to be on the team, quite frankly, unless he has a great camp.
Right.
And so then there's still opportunity depending on how it goes. And then Concepcion really in on the ground floor of this offense. So hey, he's a little bit of Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
He's a unique guy in his own right. Let's just get him on the field, get him used to the NFL game. And then as it evolves, we'll really know where he's going to play. But he's going to get touches and he's going to play a lot of snaps. So those guys add
Yeah.
juice that wasn't there. And if Bond continues to develop, and if Judy does bounce back, which they're heavily invested in, now you're on your way to having an NFL receiving corps.
Yeah.
You're on your way.
Yeah. And if they, and, for all the fans that said, like, we'll get a quarterback once the team is better, and, and it's kind of turned out that way. We'll see how much better they are, and we'll see what the quarterback play is like. But if the Browns are in the market for a quarterback next year, the quarterback will be coming into, I would think, a much better situation than he would have the last 2 years.
That is exactly right. That's the plan. And I think that's, even at this early stage before we see these guys, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So then the question is, what good does going 7-10 do for this team?
Right.
And then what are your avenues to getting that quarterback? And so the first one is Shedeur Sanders plays and develops and goes from there. Because then otherwise you get into all these projections and we'll see. But, a sneaky good part about this draft is he added those 2 4th-round picks additional. And he already had an extra fifth rounder. So like, if you have to trade the whole front of your draft, you at least have that. But the reason they're drafting 21-year-old guys, Bull, is they have to be prepared to trade an entire draft or an entire draft and a half if it comes to that, to get that guy. And then, which of your defensive players are on that timeline, we'll see.
Yeah.
But like, this is really just about rebuilding the offense and trying to have a baseline competent level offense, because for 2 years they haven't had it.
What do you? I know they're both late round picks, but the Browns drafted a couple of tight ends late. Do you like either of them?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Royer was a super productive dude the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They wanted to get in earlier. They wanted to get more of a true blocking tight end, and I think they did that in the 7th round. Will he make the team? I don't know, but the idea is just to put bodies at tight end who are true tight ends, because they want to move Fannin all around. Right. And then the idea is when they move Fannin all around, now with Concepcion too, now between those two guys, you're going to get favorable matchups and you're going to get movable pieces. Concepcion was so good as a true freshman, Bull, that NC State started lining him up in the backfield because he was getting all the attention of the defense as soon as he split out wide or into the slot. So, like I said, these are players you can move around. I think everything points to Harold Fannin, again, leading the Browns in targets, receptions, yards. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if he doesn't lead them in yards, that means somebody else had a really good season. But the staggering stat, and I knew this, I had just forgotten because I've been consumed with these draft names, is Browns wide receivers had 4 touchdown catches last year. 4. I mean, it's crazy. It's just beyond pathetic. They've led the NFL in punts for 2 years in a row. They've 32nd and 31st in scoring the last 2 years. Like, you had to get guys. And so you had to take the tackle first. I completely agree with that philosophical decision.
Yeah.
And then you go receiver. It makes sense. And if those guys, hit a little, then you're onto something. And if they hit a lot, you're really where you need to go.
Right. No doubt about it. Let's talk about what they did on defense. Obviously, most of the draft was focused on offense, but you mentioned Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who a lot of people thought would be a first-round pick. They get him with the 26th pick of the 2nd round. They took not the Justin Jefferson from the Vikings, but another Justin Jefferson in the 5th round. I'm not sure how much he'll contribute. That was it on defense, but what do you think of those picks?
Yeah, McNeil-Warren is a guy they targeted all along. He's not Kyle Hamilton because there's one, but teams are looking for that guy, right, who can line up all over the place. So his true position is free safety, center field, and that's the position that Ronnie Hickman has held down. And the Browns have his rights for 1 more year, but they probably won't be re-signing him now. But Grant Delpit's been awesome. Last year was his best year by far, and his contract is coming up. So they will play some 3 safety looks. They will move around. I don't think McNeil-Warren, day one is going to be the player that they think that he eventually can be, but they targeted him for a reason, that he can be kind of that hybrid safety. And he should be playing this year at some point, probably a lot in the back half of the year. I mean, he's good. He's got to put on some weight. Like, he's almost a legit 6'4". Like, he's almost the size of Boston. He's a safety. He kind of looks like Keon Ellis from the Cavs. He really does. Like, he's just wiry, long arms, and he had a bunch of forced fumbles and interceptions in his college career. Jefferson is a developmental linebacker. He's a special teams player. Speaking of like that whole pound of flesh discussion, like Bubba Ventrone did not have a good year last year, right? The special teams were a mess, but like, he was playing with guys that don't belong in the league. So you need to get upgrades there. And Diabate's gone. We'll see how the rest of the linebacking core kind of shakes out, but that's to improve the depth of your linebacking core and special teams going forward. And if he hits then he eventually becomes a role player. But for 2026, he's a special teamer.
Let's go to quarterback now, Zach. And they did draft a quarterback late in this draft, Talon Green from Arkansas. Everybody knows his story by now. The freak athlete, huge, perfect size, but he has his issues, and that's why was drafted as late as he was. If they were going to draft a quarterback late, what do you think of the choice of drafting this guy?
Yeah, if you're taking a ceiling shot, right? The ceiling's pretty high. But he started for 4 years. He's a runner, not a thrower.
Yeah,
total freak athlete. Like when I saw this guy at the Senior Bowl, it's like, oh my gosh, like they're not fudging these measurements one bit. But he's just not a very good thrower. So you get him in, and if you develop him and he catches on and he's active on game days, he can play. He can be your short yardage quarterback, and at least give the other team something to think about. You just have to get him used to the game and work on his throwing mechanics and see what he can and can't do, which is what the preseason and camp are for. And you give him every shot. You keep him a year or so. And his downside differently than other young quarterbacks who you're taking a stab on, and what was a really bad quarterback class.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's temper the optimism. This guy went in the 6th round in an awful quarterback class.
Yeah, right.
But other people's downside is they're out and they go coach high school. His is like you play him because he's that big and fast. Like he gets on the field for you at a point when you need him, and at some point that happens. So he said, like, they tried to move me in college. People have always talked about it since I was a kid. I should do this. I'm a quarterback, and I was drafted as a quarterback, and he's going to go be a quarterback. So, when they start that program, then in a couple of weeks with the rookies and get to the next step of it, he's going to be the 4th quarterback. He's going to be in the quarterback meetings. He's going to be out there, watching and listening with the other quarterbacks, and he will get a handful of reps, and we'll see. But I think you'll see him in the preseason. How much depends on how he progresses and what else is going on with these guys that they, as far as the competition and their own development. Whether Shador is going to be great or good or bad, like he needs preseason snaps too. So, Talon Green he's really, really interesting because some of these guys are like so raw. Well, this was a 4-year college starter.
Yeah, right.
In all winning teams until last year when Arkansas just stunk. But like they would snap him the ball and he would just take off.
Yeah.
And you like I said, you have to see him to believe him. He's nearly as big as Myles Garrett, and he's a quarterback.
That is nuts. Does this, I know Andrew Berry said, that Dillon Gabriel's not necessarily gone, but I mean, I can't imagine they're going to cut this guy. I know he's a 6th round pick, but you're not going to cut him without giving him a shot. So is Dillon Gabriel gone by the time, assuming everybody else is healthy?
Probably, but not now and not in a month unless something crazy happens. So, I did this winners and losers article for this morning on The Athletic.
Yeah, I just saw it. Haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I will after.
So Andrew Berry was a winner, right?
Yeah,
for the way he handled the draft. Shador's a winner because they didn't add any external real quarterbacks. I mean, Talon Green's at least a year away.
Yes.
But I didn't put Dillon Gabriel in the losers because it's just what it is. But it was a bad pick. Yeah. It was a bad pick and a bad evaluation.
Yeah.
So the quarterback competition right now is Shador versus Watson.
Yeah.
It just is because Dillon Gabriel's not a starting quarterback.
That's
and
correct.
Talon Green is developing on his own timeline, and he is more against himself and what he might do to help this team than he's against anyone else, right? And it's probably a long shot that he ever really helps the team. So Dillon's situation is that he has to go through the competition being 3rd and try to impress and try to get better because he needs to get a lot better.
Yeah.
And then if and when the opportunity to move on from him presents itself, they could get a late round pick or somebody's 4th safety or something like that. I think they would have done it during the draft if it had materialized. It didn't because there's just no market for him.
Yeah.
But, like we know if Deshaun plays, he's probably going to get hurt. So Dillon Gabriel might be the number 2 on the Browns, but like, he's just not a starting quarterback. And this is just his situation. Like it was really unfair to Dillon what happened last year with the dynamics of everything.
Yeah.
But he was overdrafted and then he was forced to play too early. Like the Browns drafted him in the 3rd round. And then we're like, oh, but we probably shouldn't have done this. This guy's just not good enough. So his situation is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think they're sensitive to it privately and internally. But like you don't just get rid of a quarterback because you don't know if you're going to need one. And they've had at least 3 quarterbacks play in start games in each of the last 3 years. So I think it's 100% right to say he's not in the plans, and it's 75% likely that he's going to start a game for the Browns this year.
It is true. It is unbelievable. I mean, outside of Baker, I mean, it's probably been like 10 years in a row where they've had at least 3 quarterbacks.
It's 12 times over the course of the post 1999 era.
Yeah, I mean, that's
that
crazy.
3 have started. And
Yeah.
the stat, Shadora's quarterback 42.
Yeah.
Charlie Fry, who was drafted 21 years ago, was only number 9.
Wow.
So that's 33 that have played in 20 years. And 12, that's 33 different ones that have
Right.
started a game in 20 years. And it's 12, I think 9 different names over the course of the last 3. Now, one of them is Jeff Driscoll, who played a meaningless game because they had clinched a playoff spot.
Right.
But that's the season that PJ Walker had to be plucked from nowhere and Flacco had to be plucked from nowhere. And then, just 2 season finales ago, they rotated Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Bailey Zappi.
Oof. Yes, they did. So the competition is Deshaun Watson against Shedeur Sanders. I said recently that if Deshaun Watson, as much as I want him off the team, if he wins the competition, like Todd Monken's gonna play the guy that gives him the best chance to win. And as crazy as it sounds, it is. I think it's reasonable. It could be, well, maybe not reasonable because I don't know that he's any good anymore. But it could be Deshaun Watson because who knows how good Shedeur Sanders is. What's your take on the situation right now? Like, what do you think they're thinking internally about the quarterback situation at the moment?
You've been here for 16 years. You ever said reasonable and Browns in the same sentence?
Very rarely. And usually when I said it, I was wrong.
So my take is that Deshaun's going to get every chance to win the job and that he is going to play the best guy. I've been hearing for months that they're serious about playing him.
Yeah.
And I saw it with my own eyes last week that he was first in more of the lines than Shedeur was first in. And that's one practice in April, and it doesn't mean anything because this isn't reasonable. It's ridiculous, Bull. But the reality of the situation is that he's going to get a chance to win the job. And so will he do it? Will he stay healthy if he does? And is there any chance that he could play at any kind of level to justify that any snap that he takes is better for the future of the football team, which, by the way, has not won the Super Bowl yet, despite having a good draft last weekend? So, like, the situation remains, like, laughably embarrassing, and people get mad when I keep saying it.
Yeah.
But show me where I'm wrong and show me in a different way, and then I'll grade it a different way. Like, this team is either Shedeur takes off or full all in on 2027, trade 2 drafts if you have to. Because they have to. Like, let's just check back on October 15th and see. If Deshaun goes out and stays healthy and plays at previously unforeseen levels, then the Browns will have a chance to succeed.
Yes. But what are the odds of that? Right. Almost nil.
Right.
1% maybe, if that much. I mean, the ideal situation. Yes, if Shedeur Sanders, for those who love Shedeur Sanders and think you're a hater, I'm a hater, whatever, the ideal situation for the Browns is that Shedeur Sanders becomes a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL, because then now you've got a cheap quarterback, and you finally get. I mean, you still hit with Watson cap money going forward, but at least he's out of the mix after this year.
Like if you win 6 games this year,
and
Shedeur proves to be your quarterback at least average enough, at least giving you that chance, right? Then next year when you have the 12th pick, like, you could either go all in on Jeremiah Smith or you can take whatever player you need.
Right.
Yeah. And then the alternative to that is that you need a quarterback. So you're going to sell the farm for a 21-year-old quarterback, right? Who's behind in his development, even compared to anyone. And you're either going to have to give up Myles Garrett or give up an entire draft or 2 to do that if you win more than 4 games this coming year.
Yeah.
So you either have to probably root for Shedeur or root for a total crash. Unless you're willing to give up Myles Garrett, which is probably the long-term plan anyway, because, again, you're drafting a 21 or 22-year-old kid next year.
Right. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, it's made sense. I know emotionally fans don't want to hear it, but it's made sense to trade Myles Garrett because you could get so much in return.
You get so much in return. And then you trade almost all of that with some of your own stuff and make any trade you want to get. Now you have your guy.
Yeah.
Now, if you really believe that you're a good drafting team again, now you're onto something.
What'd you think about
this was a bottom 3 receiving core.
Yeah.
Right. That if these guys hit And if they make another addition and if Judy bounces back, it moves up 5 to what's the ceiling? 12 spots,
Yeah, middle of
right?
the pack. They could get to
This
middle
is
of the pack.
still
Maybe.
like a bottom 3 quarterback group.
Yes, no doubt.
They have one running back. Like, this is hard. It's a hard league.
Yeah,
Like, they bottomed out, and so they're
Right.
rebuilding. And if Schlesinger and Fannin are stars and Judkins and Graham are good players, they're on their way. And if Concepcion is awesome, they're on their way, right? But, like,
yeah,
these are ifs, and these are huge positions unfilled. And what if
Yeah.
Judkins gets hurt? Or what if Fannin gets hurt?
No, you're right. Right, exactly. Right now. You think about all the positives and all the upside. Nobody's thinking about the negatives and the downside.
The Browns most certainly got better from Thursday to Saturday. And
Yeah.
guess who else did? The rest of the league.
That's true. Except for maybe the Jaguars. What did you think of any thoughts on the rest of the AFC North, what they did in the draft?
I have to study the full draft spool because
Yeah.
once it gets going, especially when the Browns are making that many
Yeah,
trades.
you're busy with that.
I thought Drew Aller to Pittsburgh made some sense, but not that early.
Yeah.
They had extra picks. They just wanted to do it. I thought they took Steelers players. They took Nowakowski. They took Jennings Dunker. They took Ihanachor, the offensive
Oh,
lineman.
yeah.
Like,
That
they're
guy.
the same as the Browns. Good defense, no
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah.
The Bengals, I loved the Dexter Lawrence move. We'll see if they can stay healthy. We'll see if they can play a little bit of defense. And I thought it was a very Ravens draft. It was a little wide receiver heavier than maybe I thought. They're trusting in their personnel. They thought they had their team last year and they didn't even make the playoffs. So
Right.
interesting there. I have to study the rest of it, but
Yeah.
this is as open as the division has been.
Yeah.
And that's an exciting thing for Browns fans, an exciting thing just for football fans in general. But you still have 2 MVP caliber quarterbacks and 2 franchises that don't have any answer at quarterback. And if Aaron Rodgers comes back, like, I'll never understand what the Steelers are trying to do here. So, it's kind of shrug. Like, I won't be surprised, but the 2, with health and with the right luck, those 2 teams can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true. There's no doubt about it. They have the quarterbacks. That's the biggest difference. Last thing, Zach, your thoughts on that pathetic performance by the Cavaliers yesterday?
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Like, it was so bad. And then they played well the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And
Yeah.
I thought they're going to escape. They're fine. Toronto's
Yes.
just bad. They're going to escape. They can come back. And then it fell apart. So I mean, Evan Mobley is like not even out there. Jared Allen's clearly not healthy. And Mitchell and Harden have to be heroes, and they've been average by their standards outside of 5-minute stretches. So it's worry time. The East is still wide open, and if the Cavs can just find a way to win 2 games this week, they can win the next round too. But reality hit everybody in the face yesterday. It's not a real fun feeling.
Very ugly. Zach, great stuff as always, man. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining me.
Talk to you soon, Bull.
All right. Zac Jackson from The Athletic. Great to chat with him as always. That's going to do it for today. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. Thanks to Drew and Ernie for producing today. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Dustin and I will be live at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. And then Sean King will get his recap of the Browns draft on Wednesday. And Wednesday night, I'll be on after Game 5 of the Cavs and Raptors. Until then, we'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.